We're ending the week by fact-checking President Biden infomercial. Sorry. Technically, I guess they called it a town hall on CNN. It was no surprise. A lot of big issues totally avoided. Afghanistan, not brought up. The fact that the State Department is claiming that it's in touch with more than 300 American citizens on the ground. Nope, that didn't make it. When they originally said less than 100 Americans were left in Afghanistan, none of that came up. They also failed to mention everything that we've been talking about in Loudoun County with respect to the schools, critical race theory, that rape cover-up. So much got overlooked. And, of course, didn't even bother to touch on Hunter Biden's sketchy art dealings.
I don't think anyone wants to talk about Hunter Biden's art dealings, but not to mention the fact that the network that claims to be down the middle and unbiased, right?
Yes.
Selected mostly Democrats to ask questions. Here is who asked the question. 7 Democrats, 3 independents, and yes, only 2 Republicans, which I'm really quite not sure if they were Republicans.
Well, I think there's one young woman from one of the area law schools up there in Baltimore that did a really good job, but he didn't answer a question. And it was funny, though. You mentioned trying to be down the middle. CNN anchor Chris Cuomo said Biden didn't get anything wrong in the town hall except for one thing. Take a look.
The only thing I heard him say tonight that factually I think is wrong will mean nothing to you guys, but it means a lot to me. I don't believe they made a 1967 Corvette without posi traction.
I mean, I know he's trying to be cute and funny, but I was just saying to you, Mercy, as we're coming on air, there's a Punchbowl News here in Washington, D.C., and they literally write this in the last few minutes. The fallout from President Joe Biden's CNN town hall last night continued into Friday as administration officials were forced to clarify several of the president's statements. That's the media saying that. I mean, CNN goes out of their way to make sure nothing was wrong, but the rest of the media is talking about how these guys were issuing corrections all night long. And by the way, that wasn't the only big thing he got wrong. You know, they were issuing these statements during the town hall to cover up for the president. We're going to break down all the blunders he made right now.
Let's start it off with this one. President Biden once again claimed his plan will cost nothing. Let's watch.
By the way, all of it's paid for. Every single penny. It's not going to raise 1 single cent.
That's not true. Democrats plan to pay for this outrageous spending plan through tax hikes on the wealthy and corporations.
Yeah, but when you whisper it, Mercy, it's not going to cost anything. That was my fun part, like when he did that. And the other thing is everything wasn't a joke. Listen, not a joke. Listen, Joey, you know when you grew up, not a joke. That was like, I couldn't tell how many times he said that phrase over and over again. It's starting to wear on me a little. The president was also asked, by the way, if he planned on visiting the border. Watch this.
Do you have plans to visit the southern border?
I've been there before, and I haven't. I mean, I know it well. I guess I should go down, but the whole point of it is I haven't had a whole hell of a lot of time to get down.
Time? That's the problem? Holy smokes, Mercy. The funny part about this is he goes on to talk about the first lady going down to the border. He said, oh, Jill's been down there. And there's still no proof, by the way, that he's been to the border, although he claims you know it well. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki today said that he drove through the border during a campaign stop in 2008. Like there was a drive-through or something. I don't really get how you drive through the border and somehow that checks a box. We pointed out earlier in this week that he hasn't even been busy talking to the media about this. He has only held 10 sit-down interviews, and one of them, by the way, was in a hallway. Former president, at the same time, Obama had done 131, not to mention the fact that President Biden has now spent 19 weekends at what I call Biden properties in Delaware. Almost nothing on his schedule when he's down there. You would think maybe at some point he could go down during one of those weekends, because being a president, it's not like a 5-day-a-week job. But that was the lamest excuse I've ever seen.
Yeah, no question. And one big thing President Biden has failed massively on is on holding China accountable. And here's what he said when asked about China.
China just tested a hypersonic missile. What will you do to keep up with them militarily? And can you vow to protect Taiwan?
Yes and yes.
Okay, wait a second. Does he know that replying yes to that question is not technically an answer? And he gets away with it, Sean. That's the part that is just annoying.
Yeah, by the way, the last big thing, and there was a bunch, don't get me wrong, I know you're sitting at home saying you could do this, but we could literally replay this whole thing and go through it. We just picked out some of the highlights. But he did get asked about the supply chain crisis, and he couldn't even remember the name of the port that he apparently visited a couple weeks ago. Listen to this. Anderson Cooper for the hat tip.
All products coming into the United States of America on the West Coast go through Los Angeles and what am I doing here?
Is it Long Beach?
Long Beach, thank you.
Yeah, you must know that one well, too. It completely comes at a time when you know these empty shelves, prices are skyrocketing. Residents in Gorda, California saw gas hit, check this out, sit down, $7.59 a gallon. That's not even the good stuff. The national average, though, is $3.36 per gallon, which is up $1.20 from last year. And last night, he said he has no idea how to fix it. Well, to weigh in on the state of our economy under Biden, let's bring in the former chief executive officer of CKE Restaurants, Andy Peisner. Andy, thanks for being back with us.
Great to be here, Sean. You too, Mercedes. Thank you.
So we just mentioned gas prices are skyrocketing up $1.20 from last year, which means obviously that business owners purchase more things that are going to cost more because they got to, all the transportation costs built in there. Businesses, I assume, are going to pass all that along to consumers. So essentially, Biden's claims that these prices are not going to affect the middle class seems preposterous.
So let me start by saying Biden did ask the one question that's on everybody's mind, I think, in that interview with Anderson Cooper. He said, "What am I doing here?" I think America would like to know at this point what he's doing there. He doesn't seem to be doing much. Look, all of the cost increases that go into the various products that we have to purchase across the United States will reflect increased energy costs, they'll reflect increased labor costs, and they'll reflect the scarcity of the items we're trying to buy. This is all going to hit the working middle class. The upper 10%, they'll pay more for things, but is it really a tax on them? I mean, how much does it matter if you pay a little more for gas if you're making a substantial amount of money? If you're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, which is about the median family income, those things hit you very hard. Those are taxes on the middle class, on the working class, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and with the wages not necessarily going up either. But during the town hall last night, President Biden said restaurant workers are using the pandemic as an opportunity to demand more money. As a former CEO of multiple restaurant chains, let me ask you, where is that additional money coming from, and how does this affect the prices?
Well, it's really changing the restaurant industry. You've probably noticed in your area that a lot of restaurants aren't open the same hours that they used to be open. Or
Right.
if you go to a sit-down restaurant, you can't get a waiter or you can't get anybody to serve you, even though you're in the restaurant and they happen to be open. And then the prices are increasing. You mentioned a second ago, Mercedes, wages have gone up, but inflation for the past 6 months has gone up more than wages. Well, there wasn't a month in the Trump administration where the rate of wage increases exceeded the rate of inflation. Well, it's been 6 months in a row now under Biden. This is hitting people's pocketbooks. It's changing the way restaurants operate. The labor force is a mess. You talk to anybody who runs a restaurant, and they will tell you that they believe the work ethic in America was substantially damaged during the pandemic, and it's been more severely damaged since Biden took over, and they passed that $1.9 trillion spending spree, and now they want to spend more. So we're in big trouble here, and I'm going to ask it again. What is he doing here? We need to get rid of this guy.
I thought it was interesting. At one point, he brought up this idea of when he was asked about what he's doing for small businesses, he talks about Walmart and how he went and met with these operators at the ports. And then he asked them to operate 24/7, and they're going to do it. And I kept thinking to myself what you just said, which is if you can't get someone to work an 8-hour shift, how are you going to get people to work 24/7?
Yeah, I don't see these people in the docks. I don't care what they told the president. I don't see people working 24/7 in the docks, at least not yet. There just aren't enough people. And even if people did work 24/7, there really aren't enough people to get us where we need to be. We need people back in the labor force, and you don't increase the labor force by handing out more government largesse, by increasing entitlements and creating new entitlements that encourage people to stay home rather than work. We've got a serious problem, and the policies this president is advocating exacerbate the problems. They don't solve them.
So, Andy, what can the Biden administration do in order to solve the supply chain crisis? Obviously, you're seeing families thinking, I better get my Christmas list done right now before Halloween because we're concerned we're not going to get our items in time. Can the Biden administration solve this problem?
Well, one thing is they have to stop spending. One of the reasons that people aren't working is because they have a cushion. In July, people had about $400 billion more in savings than they had when the pandemic started. So with all of this government money that was handed out, people have a cushion. And they're saying, I'm going to sit back for a while. I don't really need, maybe I can get a better job. Maybe I don't need to go back into the labor force. That needs to come to an end. We need people working. It's not good for the people who aren't working. It's certainly not good for the kids who graduated from college or high school back in 2020 and have been living, for the past 18 months in their parents' basements playing video games and getting government checks. That doesn't really teach you about being financially independent or having the dignity and self-respect that come with a job. So it's not just the labor force, it's people who aren't working, that they need to get back to work for their own good as well. So the Biden administration could encourage people to work. It could also increase our energy production. We're still way below our energy production from the pre-pandemic days. And if we can increase our energy production, just announcing to the world that we're going to be producing oil again will lower the cost of oil, because a lot of the price of oil is anticipated supply. And if people anticipate that the world's third largest energy exporter, that's us, is going to be increasing productivity, that'll drive the price down. So there are things the Biden administration can do rationally. There just aren't any they can do politically. They're having a very difficult time coming to grips with the fact that these progressive policies just don't work, and they're stuck in the middle.
Yep. Well, that's the problem. I don't think they really want to solve these problems either. Andy Puzder, I hope that they're listening to you now. Maybe they can get a sense of how they can move this in the right direction. I appreciate you being with us. Have a great weekend.
Good to see you both. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.